Research paper analysis. When you trying to perform a research project, you need to do a research design. When you design a research project, you normally need to read 30 to 50 research papers in that area. There is a huge amount of information in the literature. How can you critically reading a research paper to get information that is required for your study? First, you need to find the right paper to help you to design your project. Second, you need to know what that paper really tell you of the research outcomes, means the conclusion, that's the important part, and what is the significance. You also need to know the strength and the weakness of that paper. So in the next few slides, we're going to talk about how to critically read a research paper. When you have a research paper in your hand, you should ask, what type of research is this study? For example, this is a human study, is it a case control or case series study, or cross-sectional or case control study, or this is a cohort study, or RCT, randomized clinical trial? Because this will tell you the capacity of this study will be able to generate some results. They are very different. For example, the causal effect can only be worked out in the cohort and RCT study. In the case control and the case sectional study, that will tell you the differences between the groups, association, maybe the risk factors or predictor factors. You can calculate that. For the case report and the case series, it's just a case. The aim is to allow you to generate further hypotheses. If it is a preclinical study, like an animal study, then you know this is really talking about a mechanism, and it tells you some clinical trial where there is efficiency or toxicity. That type of data you will be able to generate. The third type is called the in vitro study. Basically, you just use cell lines or primary cultured cells, or use some proteins enzyme interaction. Then again, this part is also belong to the mechanistic study. You need to know what the main aim of this study is about. You need to know where to find them. It's normally at the end of the abstract or at the end of the discussion. So in terms of research design, there are two different levels. Number one is overall design. This is about the overall aim. Normally you can find this in the title, then that will lead to the detailed, it's called a substructure design. So you need to tell people, for example, what this data is based on. You need to do a descriptive design. Normally there is a table tell the reader about the subjects. For example, you have patients and the controls. Of if you use the animal to do the study, and you tell people this is the mice, what the strain, etc. Give them the age, gender, and some baselines. So normally this is presented by a table. You need to design a table. This is called a descriptive design. The second level of research design is the difference. So if you compare two groups, control versus the treatment, then you have two groups. You might have four groups. Then basically you need to have a good control group. Then you can demonstrate the effect of the treatment. Then the third level of research design is about whether there is association, a positive association or negative association. For example, if you eat more high-fat diet, might be gain more weight. There is association between high-fat diet and weight gain. The next level of research design, you can design a study, not a study. You can design different groups, then trying to calculate the predictive factor. Can predict if they fall this category in the future, might develop some alternations. You can work out a risk factor, and all those need to have appropriate research design. And you need to point out the purpose of statistics. This is normally in the method section. Over there you will find a section talking about statistic method used. Then you need to check the method that have been used, for example t-test or ANOVA, then the match to the results section. You can find that in the text, or you can find that in the table or the figure. Then you need to have a good look at their graphing, this including the photos, figures, and the tables. So the text, normally you give the write the details. Normally you cannot use that in the graphings. If you have a large amount of data, you can use a table. So it doesn't matter if there is a significant difference or no significant difference. You can use a table to cover a lot of data. When you have something you think is quite important, show a significant difference, in this case you can use the figures. If all no difference, you do not have to use the figures at all. You can put in a table. Now, if something's very important, you want to make a highlight on the individual cases to represent the average, then you can use photos. That's how you select photos, figures, and the tables, or the text. Then, most important thing for a reader is to know the conclusions, the meaning of your results. Therefore, you need to check that the paper whether this clearly described. In terms of conclusions, you can find in each paragraph of the results section, or you can find it at the end of each paragraph of the discussion section. Surely at the very end, normally there is a summary. That's where you can find the conclusions. Other important points: when you do a research paper, it's not only for the publication purpose, but also for people to be able to use your data for the benefit of the health. We talk about external validity, so that's you needed to evaluate that paper has that aspect. Also, you need to look at internal validity. Internal validity means whether the data generated by this paper is valid. This include the sample size, for example, to be able to make that a claim. Number two, for example, whether there is a confounding factors in the research design. You need to check that as well. We talk about in another video. Finally, you have make a comment on the limitations of this research paper. Okay, I hope that helps you to read a paper to find the information you need. Also, some critical questions you might ask. Thank you.